Hello, my name is Lucas. This is A Bit of Lit, and I'm here to talk about Bridging Worlds, Global Conversations on Creating Pan-African Speculative Literature in a Pandemic, edited by Ogunachobwe Donald Ekpeki, who asked me to review this because I've reviewed all his other work in the past couple of years. We had some technical difficulties with getting this for me, but it is free from what I've seen on Amazon because Amazon has been cruel and unjust, basically, and causing Ogunachobwe all kinds of trouble. Anyway, I've reviewed some of his other editorial works, such as Dominion, which came out a couple years ago, and is a great anthology of African diaspora speculative fiction, as well as last year's best African speculative fiction. I will leave a link to both of those, and I will also leave a link to my literal review on his recently published short story Oxygen, or O2, I'm not entirely sure how to say it, which is very interesting look into the future where you literally have to fight for your life to get a breath of fresh air, so to speak. Thus the name. Okay. I will admit this is a bit of a tough sell given the very niche topic that this is on. People talking about their creative processes and how the pandemic affected them. In that sense, it's a tough sell, but actually all the pieces in here are quite interesting, especially for me in a way, because my experience with the pandemic, having lived in China, has been radically different than it seems pretty much the entire rest of the world. Some of these people happened to be in America during the race protests of 2020 from George Floyd being brutally murdered by a police officer. So some of them also had that to contend with and floating around in their mind when the pandemic started. It is really kind of cool, a little bit of a breath of fresh air when reading this, to see sort of how they reassessed their lives, how they reevaluated what they wanted, their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations, these kind of things. In that sense, it is pretty cool to read. And I would recommend it for that if you want to see some of these kind of inspiring, motivated people who, faced challenges just like most of everybody else has, if not the entire world. I guess I have also dealt with the pandemic, but it feels radically different in China than what I've heard about in America and what I've read about in here. Some of these stories are some of these pieces are from people living in Nigeria, much like Ogunachobwe Donald Ekpeki. And what the hell? I shouldn't laugh, but I don't know what else to do, because some of the things that they're just touching on briefly, not even going full in depth, are scary, to say the least. So there's a whole gamut of emotions that you will get from this. My favorite part is I've got a little quote that I highlighted, just a small one, in an interview with Mazi Nwowu, right at the end. I'll leave you with this because I thought it was a nice little quote and would be a nice way to end this. Um, and so this is him talking about speculative fiction. For the black and African writer of the speculative fiction, all I can do is draw attention to the fact that we have the materials for the stories that aren't being told. And I believe this was a whole interview about the changes and the way the changes in African speculative fiction, how it's being written, and different sort of speculative fiction markets, and how that is affecting how African speculative fiction authors are writing and wording and telling their stories, and how there is a bit of a concern about some of these westernizing influences changing sort of the flavor, so to speak, of how these stories are told. So, for the black and African writer of the speculative fiction, all I can do is draw attention to the fact that we have the materials for the stories that aren't being told. The world hasn't even mined a drop of our heritage, our legends, our history, our lores. Our gods and goddesses are waiting to be rediscovered by a new generation through our work, through your work. There's too much material to create with. All we need to do is write and be true to the source material when we do. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You have these really inspired, aspirational people who are in some ways quite hopeful in these trying times. So, yeah, tough sell because it's such a niche subject, and probably people don't want to read something that's going to remind them of the pandemic. But from what I've heard on Twitter, it is free because Amazon has been giving Ogunachove all kinds of trouble because they're an evil corporation and they can rot in hell. But, you know, if you want something like that, then check it out. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, bit of a tough sell. Hope you check it out though.